There is a moment, subtle yet seismic, that arrives uninvited. It often comes quietly, like a ghost brushing past the skin of your awareness. You're sipping coffee, scrolling through a familiar feed, or watching someone laugh at a joke you've heard 1,000 times before, and suddenly something shifts. A thin veil seems to lift. The edges of the world blur, and you find yourself staring through the glass of existence rather than being within it. You're there, yet somehow not. It's not depression, not detachment, not a passing thought. It is something older, deeper. It is the quiet revelation that nothing feels real anymore. If you found yourself here reading these words, it is not by accident. Something inside you, silent for years, perhaps lifetimes, has stirred. You've sensed it. The stage-like nature of your surroundings, the hollowness behind daily routines, the artificial light that illuminates faces but never touches the soul. And within that recognition emerges the most potent question of all. What is real? Reality, once a trusted companion, begins to dissolve like a sandcastle at the edge of an approaching tide. The faces, feel distant. Time stretches and collapses like an accordion of illusion. Everything that once felt solid is now porous. There is no specific trauma, no sharp cause. Yet the entire fabric of what you once called life feels subtly forged. Like an exquisite dream you've awoken from, but still can't quite shake. You might think you're going mad, but you're not. In fact, you're finally becoming sane in a world engineered to hypnotize you. The feeling that nothing is real isn't a sign of dysfunction, it's an initiation, a crack in the illusion. The first whisper of truth pushing its way through centuries of collective amnesia. You are not breaking down, you are waking up. And like all true awakenings, it begins not with an answer, but with a rupture, a questioning, feeling that something doesn't belong not outside, but within. Imagine you've been raised inside a play rehearsing lines written by someone else, standing on a stage lit by artificial suns. The audience applauds. The critics approve. The world smiles at your performance. But deep inside, something aches. Something remembers that the stars once spoke to you in your sleep, that the wind once carried secrets meant only for your soul. And now that part of you, the ancient, eternal observer, is stepping forward. This is not about conspiracy. It is about consciousness. It's not that the world is falsehood. It's that your relationship to it has been scripted, flattened, hollowed. Only now are you seeing the scaffolding behind the scenes. The dream was vivid, immersive, even beautiful at times. But once you taste the truth, the dream cannot hold you the same way again. Every civilization has had its moment of fracture its mystics, its madmen, its truth-tellers, who walked between worlds and returned with words that didn't quite fit the old lexicon. They were the ones who said, "The world is more than it seems, less than it claims to be." They saw beyond the veil and came back with trembling hands and eyes like open skies. You are becoming one of them. Not because of what you believe, but because of what you've begun to feel. The unreality you sense is not the absence of meaning, it is the presence of something greater than meaning, something the mind can't grasp, but the soul can't ignore. It is as though you are beginning to remember a forgotten agreement, that you would enter this dream, play this role, but not forever. There would come a moment, a signal, a soundless invitation, where you would awaken from within and begin to question the theater itself. And now here it is. So when you look around and feel that the streets, the faces, the conversations are somehow thin, almost projected, do not panic. You are not dissociating. You are disidentifying. You are no longer content to live within the skin of illusion. As you peel back layer after layer, you may feel dizzy, ungrounded, uncertain. But remember, this is the sacred vertigo of truth. You are standing at the edge of the known world, staring into the infinite architecture of something realer than real. This video, this message, is not meant to comfort you. It is not meant to wrap you in warm spiritual platitudes. It is a flare shot across the dark sky of your forgetting, voice calling from the shores of your eternal self. The part of you that remembers what it means to be without roles, without scripts, without masks. And so, we begin not by explaining, but by feeling. The words to follow are not merely meant to inform, but to initiate. Let them move through you like wind through an open temple. Let them whisper not answers, but questions that make your bones ache with recognition. Let them remind you that nothing feels real anymore, because what is truly real is finally beginning to emerge. The stage is dimming. The actors are breaking character. The dream is dissolving. Are you ready to remember what lies beyond the veil? Nothing feels real anymore because the veil has thinned. Reality, for much of human history, has been treated like a rigid, sculpture-defined, knowable, permanent. But in truth, it's more like mist, ever-shifting, layered, elusive. The sensation that nothing feels real anymore is not the collapse of reality itself, but the beginning of a new way of seeing. What we call reality is not a destination, it is a lens, a frame. A translation of deeper vibrations into a story we can temporarily inhabit. At the heart of this unsettling feeling lies one central tension. The conflict between the apparent world and the authentic self. You walk through streets, speak to people, perform rituals of everyday life, but a part of you has noticed that something is missing. The world appears polished, performative. Interactions often feel rehearsed. Moments that should sparkle feel empty. You are surrounded by symbols, signs, glowing rectangles that offer distraction but not depth. This is not a flaw in you, it is the echo of a truth long buried beneath habit and repetition. The world we've created is not made to nourish the soul. It is made to maintain the system. We have mistaken structure for meaning, performance for presence, and information for wisdom. This dissonance births the sensation of unreality. The deeper truth is that what we call the real world is in many ways a curated hallucination. Social agreement layered over something vastly more alive and ineffable. We've come to confuse the simulation with the source, the map with the terrain. We've engineered our lives to be constantly lit, connected, consumed in the process. We've lost touch with the sacred silence that once whispered to us between the cracks. There is a secret architecture behind what you're feeling. It's not random, nor is it merely psychological. The sensation that things are hollow, that you are floating above yourself, that no moment seems to penetrate you anymore. This is the spirit's reaction to a life stripped of depth. In a society addicted to noise, stillness feels like emptiness. In a culture obsessed with productivity, contemplation feels like decay. But the truth is this: your soul is not disengaging from reality. It is disengaging from the false facade of reality. The stage is crumbling, but the ground beneath it has always been real. And so we arrive at one of the core concepts behind this phenomenon: disenchantment. There was a time when everything felt alive: the sky, the trees, the silence of dusk. There was a time when even pain had a flavor of presence, and joy felt like communion. But the modern world has severed the sacred from the scene. We've rationalized mystery, labeled awe as naivety, and paved over the wildness within us. Now we wander through steel cities, surrounded by lights that never go out and screens that never look back, wondering why nothing touches us anymore. But disenchantment is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of reenchantment. What dies first is not the real, it is the illusion of the real. And in that death, something ancient can be reborn. Another theme emerges: perception versus awareness. Perception is how your senses interpret stimuli, what you see, hear, and touch. But awareness is something deeper. It is the silent witness beneath perception. When you say nothing feels real, what you are experiencing is a fracture between perception and awareness. You are seeing the world, but your awareness is not aligned with it. The two no longer match. It's as if you're watching a film with the sound off, something is missing, and you can't explain what. Yet this is the great paradox. The very feeling that reality is crumbling is the first sign that you are approaching something more real than you've ever known. The self that used to feel at home in this simulation is not your true self. It was a mask designed to fit the mold, and now the mold no longer fits. The room you've lived in has shrunk, not because the world is changing, but because you are. You are beginning to see. The more you see, the more fragile the old world becomes. This is why the journey through unreality is not a descent into chaos, it is an ascension into clarity. You are not losing your mind. You're beginning to reassemble it around a deeper truth, one that cannot be measured by clocks or counted in likes. A final core theme pulses here beneath all others: the return of the soul. In ancient traditions, the soul was not some airy concept or poetic metaphor. It was the root of reality itself. The soul was not something you had, it was something you were, and it was connected, inseparably, to everything that existed. But in modernity, we've become strangers to our own souls. We've traded intimacy for efficiency, intuition for logic, presence for productivity. And so the soul has stepped back, waiting, watching, until the moment we begin to miss it so deeply we can no longer ignore its absence. That moment is now. Nothing feels real anymore, because what we once called real was only a costume worn by deeper forces. And now those deeper forces, your soul, your awareness, your unfiltered perception, are beginning to rise. The shadows of your inner world are stepping forward into the light, not to frighten you, but to free you. You are not breaking, you are breaking open. And the world you about to discover on the other side of that fracture is more alive, more mysterious, and more beautiful than anything this simulation could ever offer. The mirror, the mask, and the cracked sky. Imagine a man walking through a village that never changes. The trees remain in bloom, the sky always a perfect blue, da-da-da-da. The villagers greet him with the same smile each morning, and each night the stars return in flawless constellations. At first, he feels safe. The predictability is comforting, but one day he notices a crack in the wall of a house. Then another in the cobblestone path. The next morning, the village baker smiles at him, but something in her eyes is hollow, like a marionette pulled by strings. He begins to question, was this always like this? Have I been asleep? The stillness becomes eerie, the perfection turns plastic. And so he walks to the edge of the village and beyond it. He finds a field wild and untamed, where the wind speaks in a language he has not heard since childhood. This story, though simple, whispers a truth many feel today. The village is our constructed world, the roles, the labels, the rituals, and the cracks are the moments of dissonance we try to ignore. The artificiality of small talk, the numbness behind routine, the automated performances of social life. When things no longer feel real, it is not madness we are touching. It is the invitation to step beyond the village. Another story. A woman receives a mirror from an old mystic in the desert. The mystic says, "This mirror does not show you how you appear, it shows you what you have forgotten." Curious, she gazes into it and sees not her face, but a vast landscape. Forests she once imagined, a child laughing beneath stars, the ocean of emotion she learned to suppress. At first, she thinks it's broken, but the more she watches, the more she begins to remember who she was before she learned to perform. Tears come not from sadness, but recognition. She realizes the mask she wore had not just hidden her from others, it had hidden her from herself. This is the nature of modern disconnection. We do not merely lose touch with the world, we lose touch with ourselves. When nothing feels real, it is often because we have been living through a reflection that does not reflect us. The mirror of the world has grown distorted, and what we see in it filtered, flattened, curated is not life, but a pantomime of life, a mimicry, and slowly our soul begins to retreat. But the soul is patient. It speaks in symbols. It waits for us to notice the flicker in the pattern, the inconsistency in the program. When the matrix glitches, it is not just a breakdown, it is a doorway. There is an old myth rarely told of a traveler who climbs a tower to see the world more clearly. At the top, instead of clarity, he finds fog. Angry and disillusioned, he curses the tower. But then, a raven lands on the railing and whispers, "The fog is not outside. The fog is within you." The traveler realizes the tower was never meant to reveal the world, it was meant to reveal himself. And only by confronting his own blindness can he begin to see the world as it truly is. This is the essence of our moment. The unreality we feel is not solely about the external world. It is about the fog that is gathered within us. It's the layers of conditioning, of distraction, of expectation, the noise. We were promised that if we played by the rules, if we followed the script, we would feel alive. But instead, we feel rehearsed. The tower gave us the illusion of elevation, but no depth. And now, we are being asked to descend. To return not down in shame, but down into the earth, the body, the breath, the now. There is also the story of the cracked sky. In an ancient city, the sky begins to fracture, sending waves of panic through its people. The priests declare it an omen. The scholars study its patterns. The merchants sell protection charms. But a child sitting on a hill simply watches. Through the crack, she sees something no one else does. Stars brighter than ever before, and something even deeper, a presence. Not a god, not a being, but a vast awareness watching back. Noticing, waiting, the cracked sky was not the end. It was an invitation. Call to remember that there is something beyond this dome we've built, this projection we've mistaken for the infinite. In our lives, the sky has cracked. We see it in moments of existential dread, in nights when the ceiling feels too low. In mornings when we wonder what any of this means. We feel it in our bones when laughter sounds forced, when joy feels like an echo instead of a song. The simulations that once comforted us now suffocate. And the cracks we once feared are beginning to show us something greater. Because beyond the performance, there is presence. Beyond the script, there is silence. Beyond the mirror, there is a face you have not yet fully remembered. A face that belongs not just to your personality, but to your essence. When we say nothing feels real anymore, it is not always a symptom of despair. It can be the herald of awakening. The world has not become fake. It has always contained illusion. What has changed is you. Your eyes have begun to see through the veil. Your spirit, once slumbering, is stretching, remembering, reaching back towards something ancient. These stories are not just tales. They are codes. They speak in the language of soul, and they emerge precisely when we are ready to receive them. The unreality is not the final chapter, it is the initiation. The dismantling of the mask is the beginning of the sacred. It's a moment when everything seems hollow, is the precise moment when something eternal begins to speak. Listen, it's already whispering. It's how the unreality awakens the real. So here you are. You've wandered through the metaphysical mist, peered into mirrors that do not reflect your skin, but your soul. Listened to symbols that spoke more truth than logic. But as the stars dim and the stories settle, a new question rises like steam from the morning earth. How do I carry this into the world I must live in? The one of bills and schedules of conversations that often feel hollow, of a culture that prizes the mask over the marrow? The answer begins not with doing, but with being. When you feel that nothing is real anymore, your first instinct may be to panic or to distract, to dive deeper into your devices, to double down on performance. But consider instead, what if the feeling is not a problem to solve, but a signal to heed? A lighthouse emerging through fog, not to warn of danger, but to illuminate your forgotten path. The unreal begins to dissolve when you meet life in its rawest moments, when you choose presence over performance, silence over noise, connection over control. Not grand gestures, but subtle rebellions. Choosing to feel your breath for 30 seconds before reaching for your phone, looking into the eyes of a stranger on the train and simply being there. Drinking water not to hydrate, but to commune with something ancient. These are not mystical acts. They are the rethreading of your humanity. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "We are not on a journey to be somewhere else. We are dancing." And a dance like life becomes real when we stop trying to choreograph it to perfection. When we let the music move us rather than forcing our steps. In a world obsessed with outcomes and optics, the greatest act of rebellion is to return to what is immediate, what is unfiltered, what is real not because it is spectacular but because it is felt. Many chase authenticity like a possession, but authenticity is not something you innit, something you allow. It is not a trait you wear like a jacket. It's a current you fall into when you stop gripping so tightly. The more we grasp at reality, the more it slips like sand through our fingers. The more we soften into experience, the more it reveals its texture. Even pain, even boredom, yes, even the dull ache of routine, can be a portal to the real if met fully, without judgment. In daily life, this means learning to observe the performance without getting lost in it. You go to work. you play the roles. But now you carry a secret, that you are more than the role. You are the awareness playing the role. Detachment is not numbness. It is freedom. It's like an actor who knows they are on stage, and thus no longer fears the critique of the crowd. You begin to participate in life without becoming its prisoner. A man sits in traffic and suddenly remembers. He is not the tension in his shoulders, not the impatience clawing at his chest. He is the observer of these sensations. A woman answers emails but listens, just beneath the keystrokes, to the soft hum of her breath. A child stares out the classroom window and feels a strange comfort in the shape of the clouds. In these tiny moments, the spell of unreality weakens. Even your pain can become an instrument of transformation. When nothing feels real, it may be that your soul is grieving the life unlived, the voice unsaid, the joy unfelt, the wonder suppressed. Allow that grief. Mourn the false layers. Cry for the mask you wore. And in that sacred surrender, you begin to recover something primal, something that predates every expectation laid upon you. The world itself may not change. The buildings will remain. The news will roar. People will scroll and scroll and scroll. But your relationship to the world will shift. You'll find space between thoughts, silence between actions, meaning where there was once monotony. This is not a scap at his return. Some might ask, but isn't this just romanticizing disconnection? No. It's recognizing disconnection as a rite of passage, a necessary dissolution before deeper integration. You are not broken for feeling that life is unreal. You are breaking through. You might find yourself slowly withdrawing from certain conversations, not out of arrogance, but because your spirit craves depth. You may become quieter not from depression, but because the silence has begun to speak. You might laugh more not from entertainment, but because you realize the absurdity of chasing meaning in masks. And then, without trying, you begin to re-enter the world as something rare. Someone who is not looking to consume reality, but to touch it. Not to own truth, but to participate in it. Your presence becomes magnetic. Your eyes carry weight. You become the grounding point in rooms of static. It's not by performing realness, but by simply being, and others will feel it, even if they can't name it. This is the paradox. When we let go of trying to make life feel real, reality begins to flow through us again. We return to the texture of the moment, to the taste of food, the warmth of hands, the sacredness of ordinary things. We stop narrating every moment and start inhabiting them. To live authentically in a time of illusion is not to retreat from the world, but to relate to it differently. To walk with eyes open, heart unarmored, spirit awake. You don't have to leave your job, move to the mountains, or shun modernity. You only have to remember that beneath the layers of simulation, there is a pulse, and that pulse is your birthright. Reality is not a destination. It is a rhythm, a texture, sensation. It is waiting, always waiting for you to return. The real that waits beneath the unreal. If you've made it this far, then something deep within you has stirred some ancient compass hidden beneath the noise. Pointing not outward but inward. Not toward a place, but toward a recognition. That this strange, hollow feeling that nothing feels real anymore is not a defect in you. It is a message. A quiet invitation. A whisper from the soul reminding you that you were never meant to live this way. That unreality you feel is not the enemy, is the beginning. The beginning of an awakening that does not flash like fireworks, but blooms like twilight. Think of your life up to this point as a long dream. A dream punctuated by brief flashes of lucidity. The smell of rain after years of forgetting. A look in a friend's eyes that speaks louder than words. A quiet morning. When the silence wrapped itself around you like a prayer. In those moments, you touched something raw. Something real. And then, like slipping back into sleep, you forgot again. Now you remember. You see, the world is not broken because it is digital or busy or chaotic. The world is broken because we have severed our experience from meaning. We have mistaken the map for the territory, the screen for the soul, the image for the essence. We scroll past our lives as though they are too much to bear. And in doing so, we become ghosts haunting our own timelines. But you are not here to be a ghost. You are here to feel, to witness, to participate, to meet the universe. not with indifference, but with awe. The unreality you sense is not the death of meaning. It is the compost from which real meaning grows. And the soil of that meaning is presence. It is courage. It is the willingness to look into your own eyes without flinching. You are being called not loudly, not with the fanfare of prophets, but with the tender hand of life, tapping gently on your shoulder. Not to escape reality, but to embody it more fully than you ever have. And that embodiment will not be perfect. It will not be clean, but it will be true. You will falter. You will forget again. You'll get lost in algorithms and comparisons and cravings. But each time you remember, even for a breath, you carve a path a little deeper through the wilderness of forgetting. Become a lamp in the fog, not only for yourself, but for others who wander in silence, wondering why nothing feels right anymore. And here's the greatest truth of all. You are not alone in this. There are other silent mystics in coffee shops, secret philosophers on city buses, awakened hearts behind weary eyes who are also feeling the edges blur, also seeking the thread that connects them to something real. And when you speak your truth, when you live your life like it matters, you become a signal, a tuning fork for those lost in static. You remind them of the pulse beneath the performance. We are not meant to live numb, scrolling ourselves into stupor. We are meant to taste, to cry, to rage, to wonder. We are meant to listen for the hum beneath the silence, to feel the ache of existence, not as a burden, but as proof that we are alive. And aliveness is the only true real there is. So what now? Now you walk differently, not away from the world, but into it with clarity. You start small. You reclaim your breath. You meet a moment today, not tomorrow. Not in some perfect meditation retreat, but now, right now. You make eye contact with your reflection and do not look away. You speak one sentence today with your whole truth inside it. You listen to one friend without preparing your reply. You sip water and know that it matters. These are not acts of performance. These are acts of return. And every time you do them, the veil thins, the colors sharpen, the air begins to hum. And life in all its mundane beauty opens its hand again. It's not because anything outside you has changed, but because you have awakened to it. So if nothing feels real anymore good, it means the illusion has cracked. It means you're ready to remember. It means the soul is stirring, and now you choose. Do you fall back asleep in the warm familiarity of unreality? Or do you walk slowly, humbly, breath by breath back into the sacred, unspeakable real? The door is open, the choice is yours, the moment is now. Welcome home.